Hello, everybody. It's great to see you here today. Thank you for joining our session around using machine learning to protect veterans. I am Dave Gowell, the CEO of RallyPoint, and I am joined today by Dr. Matthew Nock and Erik Kastman. And we're going to talk to you about the work we are doing in this space and look forward to your questions throughout. If you'd like to put questions in this session, there is the Q&A, and feel free to use the chat, and we'll try to answer them either during or towards the end. If you have more direct questions, we're also available to stay after the session to be able to go into a breakout room where we can further interact on this work. So to start, looking at the problem. The issue that we are addressing here is something that we have seen on the site that is RallyPoint. So rallypoint.com is a website used by military veterans, service members, family members, caregivers, and survivors. We have 1.8 million members. And those members have created 6.3 million posts. And those posts look a lot like what you see on the screen here. In this case, which is a very, very narrow use case of the way people leverage our platform, you can see that there's an individual talking about suicidal thoughts and how he's not going to make it this time. And he's sharing really raw and troublesome thoughts. And the idea is that we've seen these in the past, and we felt that it was great that because RallyPoint is a peer-to-peer network where we have members jumping in to help individuals like this one, they often jump in at different times and with different levels of expertise. Almost exclusively, we see people trying to be helpful and productive, but we wanted to find a way to get to these individuals who are making these public cries for help on our site in a thoughtful, deliberate, productive way where we do no harm. And so this is the problem that we had. And this is where, when we recognize the uniqueness of our site, that being essentially that RallyPoint kind of has a feel of a combination of like a LinkedIn, a Facebook, and a Quora. It's a site that is social, professional, and informational. And that gives us lots of insights on where our members are in their professional careers, be it in the military or afterwards. And it also gives us lots of insights onto what they care about by what they're saying in areas like this. So it was all this that brought us to the point of trying to figure out how we go after this problem that is significant in the military community. And we were very fortunate to be connected to and accompanied to on this journey with Dr. Matthew Nock, who's the chair of the psychology department at Harvard University. And I will now pass the slides to Dr. Nock.
Thanks, Dave, and hello, everyone. As Dave mentioned, my name is Matt Nock, and I'm a professor of psychology at Harvard. And throughout the past 25 years, have been spending virtually all of my professional time studying the problem of suicide. And so we're really excited to team up with RallyPoint and AWS on this project. And I want to take just a few moments to talk about why we're focused on suicide in particular. This is a problem that people often don't talk about, they don't like to think about, hear about, often gets avoided. So why are we focused on it? In a nutshell, because it's a huge problem for us as a society. It has been for thousands of years. Suicide is one of the leading causes of death in the US, 10th overall. It's actually the second leading cause of death among people ages 15 to 34. So it disproportionately affects our young people and is one of the leading contributors to years of life lost overall, given how much it affects younger people. In addition to affecting young people, the suicide rate also is especially high in military service members and in veterans. Both groups have higher rates of suicide than matched people in the general population. The Army in particular has seen a skyrocketing in the suicide rate among service members, among soldiers, over the past decade or so. So we're really interested in understanding why that is and in trying to help any way we can. Why this type of project focused on social media posts? Well, it turns out we've known for decades that about 2/3 of people who die by suicide, before they die, tell someone they're thinking about suicide. And they typically don't tell their doctor. They typically tell a friend or a partner, someone close to them. Unfortunately, those statements very often get missed or get ignored, frankly, because people often don't know how to respond. Sort of like with funerals, people, it's an uncomfortable situation for many people. We don't know how to respond, and so often people don't say anything at all. Or don't take the person in for help. These are difficult situations, and opportunities to help often go missed. And so the purpose of us working with RallyPoint and AWS on this project is to find a way to find instances where people are talking about suicide or suicide-related language, and then reach out to them, either using humans or in an automated way, to intervene, to find people when they're at risk, when they're letting others know they're at risk, and help out in some way by connecting them with services, connecting them with social supports. And RallyPoint, I think, has been a great partner, as has AWS, in this work. And so now, having framed the problem, I want to pass the baton to Erik Kastman, who's going to walk us through a little demonstration of what it is this project is doing. But he is muted.
Thank you both, Matt and Dave. My name is Kastman. I've been a research software engineer at Harvard and recently with RallyPoint for about a decade. I was working with both of these and our fantastic partners at the AWS Machine Learning Solutions Lab to evaluate the problem, put it together, and try to create a live solution on the site to have early detection for a rapid and responsible response. So our initial challenge was creating a training set. As Dave mentioned, there are 6.4 million posts on RallyPoint in its entire history. But we estimated that certainly well under 1% of those contain the kind of outreach that Dave and Matt had seen. The initial search to find candidates for our expert labelers in the NOC lab was actually quite difficult. We performed de-identification, of course, and then used weak supervision to try to denoise the entire set. So this included looking at sentiment analysis to look at negatively valenced posts, using previously published and internal suicide-related word dictionaries to find a vectorized assessment of how likely simple word similarity was to these suicidal posts. And then also performed further denoising with Snorkel to try to remove a lot of their sort of standard tropes, patterns that people have on RallyPoint that the community has built up. It's helpful for the community, but it's not helpful for us in searching for these candidates. So that actually took quite a lot of time. Once we had a good set, though, we performed rigorous manual assessment in labeling within the NOC lab. We had a team of postdocs and grad students looking at these de-identified posts, trying to assess, is there a language of concern? So primarily we're looking at the self-injurious thoughts and behaviors, SITBs, and we're looking for things that would require intervention or attention, somebody to reach out and say, hey brother, here are resources. We want to improve the end goal of this is to get resources in front of people who need them as they're reaching out in ways that we might have missed. In order to perform this training, we used stringent rater consistency checks to get all of our expert manual human raters in agreement as closely as we could up to a threshold. We had a code book looking at various dimensions of recency of events, type of event. Was there a plan or not? Was there a specific method listed? And all of that is very important to this kind of identification, because if we don't have a consistent pattern to learn, the algorithm is not going to take us where we need it to be. And finally, because these posts are so incredibly rare, we found that a huge problem was actually a class imbalance. So even in this enriched data set of very likely posts containing words that matched suicide dictionaries, we found the prevalence to only be about 1 in 5, so about 20%. In our training set, over our expert posts, we did 2,500, in addition to some external test set that I'll mention later. But we found that data augmentation was a strategy that was especially important as well. So this actually, we tried to increase focus for our labels, focus for suicidal content, taking longer posts and extracting individual pieces, performing a number of different types of synonym replacement and token reorganization, so swapping words in, swapping similar words. And then finally, we actually had expert generation, where our labelers, after having read all of these posts, created what would be SITB positive examples. Now, this is definitely something where you could introduce human bias. So we always included an additional negation example for replacing the word with one that was not self-injurious or not suicidal. We decided to frame the problem as formalize it, looking for SITB binary content. This was one because it was a fairly hard decision and we wanted to have something that would be actionable. And we decided to look at average precision in order to account for the class balance as our primary metric. We did a fair amount of early exploration. We did standard naive Bayes. We did TF-IDF vectorizers with support vectors. And we finally settled on using highly context-specific word embeddings, pre-trained word embeddings. The bidirectionality was very important to capture context, lexical morphology, syntax, and semantics. And so we ended up with a BERT family of models as the primary category. Additionally, the attention aspect of transformers like that was pretty helpful for finding specifics of suicide that we thought would be meaningful and the model could grab. Finally, we pre-trained that model on the full Rally Point corpus. Rally Point prides itself on allowing military members and their families to not have to rephrase who they are, to use the standard military acronyms to really build a strong community. And that required pre-training in order to get the mass language modeling to more accurately represent the kinds of posts that the model was going to see. I'm showing a confusion matrix from our current BERT family of models. F1 here, I think, was about 73%. As you can see, there are way more negatives and positives, and this is even in our enriched set. And the model is not perfect. It is still missing some true examples. When you go in and look at these, they're fairly ambiguous, but we're working on getting our threshold as low as we can to still be reasonable in order to not miss anything. Even though the model's not perfect, we wanted to deploy early and often. We wanted to get this out there and have an actionable intelligence as early as we could. So we created a live site implementation. To do this, we had been training and hyperparameter training on SageMaker all along. This is a hosted machine learning service that I'm sure many of you are familiar with. And we found it quite straightforward. It was very helpful. We were able to use GPU machines quite well, and set up a HTTP post endpoint that was able to be hit directly from the Rally Point servers in real time. So as people are posting, every single post, every comment is screened quickly for possibly concerning language, possible SITBs, and a very quick response, usually less than 250 milliseconds. We get a response back, a binary prediction from the model. Is this likely to contain SITB content or not? If it is above the threshold that we choose, we then it'll alert the site admins who are able to join a human response to provide resources, to provide a comment. And again, I'd like to remind everybody that these are only public posts that are being framed. So these are all things that people are putting out as part of the standard conversation. We're not doing any kind of screening of private discussions. The point here is to really try to be a quick and accurate sentry so that what could possibly have been missed doesn't fall through the cracks. The model does have some current limitations. It is dependent on the expert review of the amazing NOC lab. It's not connected to medical records or self-report at present. This means that it is primarily assessed within its own framework of language. It's hard to know exactly how far into generalizability we can get. We're currently performing we're currently looking into that to try to get a baseline assessment from other ways. We do have human-in-the-loop validation, so periodic retraining with the posts that are coming back. All the posts, whether they're false positives or not, are being reviewed, and those are actively going into improving the model, retraining the model, making it the newer version more available. And this is absolutely critical because at present, the biggest limitation is just the size of the training set. The more that we can get in there, we saw regular improvements from, even as we were going through our labeling, 1,000 to 1,500 to 2,000 to 2,500. Had very continual improvements. We're not near the ceiling of what we can do with that. We do also have a more ecologically valid test set that we are holding out, still waiting to do a full analysis on. This includes posts that were sampled through the entire dictionary set. So not just the ones that were likely to be possibly at the decision boundary. And we're also looking to include extra covariates by combining models. This is important for post metadata, for other possible contributors that might help suggest what is a true SIP-B or what is not a true SIP-B. So again, I'd like to say this is early work. We're really excited about it. We wanted to get it out there and share with people. And thank you very much. I think we have a couple of minutes for Dave and Matt.
Thank you very much, Eric. I appreciate you taking the time to take everyone through that. And so now would be a good time for anyone to have questions. You can put them into the chat or the Q&A if those are visible to you on your screen. At the same time, if you look in the chat for the session, you can see that both Yamai and Dr. Knox emails are available if you'd like to reach out to us to ask any additional questions. So in the minute we have left, we'll stand by to see if there are any additional questions. So as the event organizers had asked us to be disciplined and on time and not to go too long, again, the contact information for us is in the chat. Please feel free to reach out. Appreciate the kind phrase or sentiment that's being shared in the session chat. And we look forward to connecting with you all if you're interested in following up on this discussion. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Erik.
Thanks, everyone, for coming.
Thank you so much for listening.
Take care.